My main thing left and my side thing switched up. It's better that way. I was getting them mixed up. Main thing left, side thing switched up. It's better that way. I was getting them mixed up. Main thing left and my side thing switched up. It's better that way.
Welcome back to the Freelance Network Podcast, everybody. A podcast by content creators for content creators. Bam, sign, it's gone. So, hey, this week, Cassie is currently diligently working on her finals because right now all college students are doing virtual online finals. We send our sympathies and prayers to you and your grades and GPAs. Good luck with that. But right now, I have one of my favorite college students on because this guy's my day one homie. Me and him have been making videos together for a long time now. So welcome to the podcast, Connor Morgan. Connor, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic, Luke. Thanks so much for having me on.
Of course. It's been a long time coming. We were supposed to film back when we had a studio, but then you had a wedding because this man's an entrepreneur. Well, everybody at home know that. He's a successful businessman. But business comes first. But hey, now we're here. Now we're recording. Hopefully you can't hear my neighbor mowing his lawn. That would be annoying. But hey, you got to mow your lawn when you got to mow your lawn. So, Connor, me and you met back in high school during SNN, Southern News Network, like probably a third of the guests that have been on this podcast now.
The good old days.
Yes, the good old days. So I remember first meeting Connor and being like, wow, this kid's annoying, but in the best way possible because you were like a charming annoying, you know?
Yeah, when was the first time we met? Where was it? I remember seeing you in the hallways. I was a freshman, but I don't. Were you in the program yet? Were you in?
No. I was in it and then left and then came back. I met you before I came back, like super briefly, but I don't even remember like the first time we actually met. We just kind of became friends because of all of our mutual friends in SNN, like making videos, and then we would hang out outside of schools, probably half-apps. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
That's probably the first time we actually met.
Where every great Manahawkin relationship begins.
Yeah, I don't know how far that outside Manahawkin that makes sense, but if you're not from Manahawkin and listening to this, all we had to do was go to Applebee's for half-price appetizers. So that's where a lot of our precious childhood memories are. But yeah, so SNN was a great time, and I'm super appreciative of it because I have so many great connections through it still to this day, Connor being one of them. So I feel like the defining moment for you was one day when you were asked a favor and it kind of tumbleweeded into what you do now. But why don't you tell that story?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were a key part in this to begin with because, like my entire time going through my getting started in SNN to begin with was a huge accident because I did theater for my entire life. And then I wanted to take improv coming into the high school. So on my elective sheet, I put improv down first, and then my mom thought intro to TV production sounded cool, so she told me to put it twice as my number 2 choice. But I was like an edgy 8th grader, so really I wanted to take wood shop so I could do metal shop and work on cars. But I did theater, so I really wanted to do improv, but improv filled up before I could get into it. So I got the second choice of TV production, and I remember talking to my one friend about it and being so mad and begging my mom to call the school and get me switched into improv because and just throw a fit. And she was like, just take TV, because she wanted me to do it in the first place. So I continued with it. I wound up doing it. And then I grew to like it and then hate it and then love it. And we always had this love-hate relationship with the program, as I'm sure everyone does. But that fast forward to senior year, I didn't really have like a clear direction of what I wanted to do because I wasn't very good at SNN. Like, I liked doing it, but I wasn't good with the camera. Like, if you thought of like the top cinematographers, the top people who you wanted to use the camera for your project in TV, I was absolutely not in the top 10 of your list. But I liked being on camera, and that was fun, but we were making the fun skits. But because I did theater, the director of the musical, Miss Tabagina, she her cousin was getting married at Cedar Bonnet Island, one of my favorite venues now, in September. And 2 days before the wedding, as most people do, our bride didn't get a videographer and only focused on getting a photographer. And a few days before the wedding, realized that she was going to regret it if she didn't have a video of her day. But 2 days before a wedding is a tough time to find a videographer for your wedding. So she reached out to Jana, and Jana reached out to me because she knew that I was in the TV program and also did theater. So she asked if I was free on that Saturday to come film her cousin's wedding. I said sure, and I was really just expecting like $50 and like a handshake, maybe a hug, but it turned into she was like, does $500 sound okay? And as a senior in high school, $500 was like, what? That's more money than I've ever seen in my entire life. Did you just hear that?
No.
Okay, my ringer just went off. Sorry. Put that in the start. So $500 was more money than I've ever seen in my entire life. So I was super stoked about it. And I called you, because I for sure wasn't going to do it alone. So I spent the next 2 days just going crazy on YouTube, watching wedding videos and how to film weddings. And I stumbled upon Wedding Film School, which was run by Craig Adams at the time. And I binged his entire channel that one night. Went to Best Buy the next day, spent $100 that I didn't have on a new lens. And then I went to the school and borrowed a camera from Kazuba.
Shout out to Johnny K.
Johnny K, our TV production teacher. And I took out a camera from them. And he was, you know what, thinking about it, he was kind of shady about it because he was not into it. He was like, you're going to be making money off of our cameras. And I was like, what? Shut up. So,
Hope he listens to this.
I hope he does too. Love you, Zoops. But anyways, we did the wedding, we shot it. And I remember that night, I was feeling so good about it. And I called my mom. You were there before. We called my mom together. And I was like, Mom, I think I found what I want to do for the rest of my life. Which sounds like a movie moment, but like, as all things do, was not reality because it was the start of something really great, but definitely not what I want to do forever. But weddings are a huge piece of this, and it started from when I was a senior in high school. I mean, it was something that, yeah.
Well, you started the company. I mean, it was originally Anchors Away, and then you ditched that name real fast.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I always forget about that because.
Because I remember you texted me that same night. You were like, that night you were like, bro, our name is Anchors Away. And I was like,
I want something to do with LBI.
Yeah, no, I thought I liked Anchors Away. But then you texted me like a couple days later and you were like 18 Mile. And for those who don't know, LBI is 18 miles long. And it's just a nice name. Connor came up with a great logo. It was the classic, I like to call vintage 18 Mile logo. That one is probably one of my favorite logos that if any of my friends have made, just because it looks so classy and clean. But the reason why I think it's so crazy that this happened was you were 17 and you started a business and it worked, and it's still happening now.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I started a business, but I didn't know that I was starting a business. Like, I filmed the first wedding, and while we were there, the manager of Cedar Bonnet Island's daughter was getting married later in October. And they were having a destination wedding later that year in Hawaii. And they were just having a minor reception, and it was just going to be friends and family, and it was basically just going to be a big cocktail hour. And so they had me come film it and put together a little highlight, but there was no ceremony. There was no story to really make of it. It was just a reception. So we did that. And those were my only 2 weddings of 2017 when we started. That was 2016, I guess.
2016, yeah.
Yeah, that was 2016. And then, and I did there, and at that point there was no name. We were wrestling with a few, so like Anchors Away was big. But my friend Chris Huck, told me that brides wouldn't like anchors away because anchors would remind them of heavy, and they would think that was calling them fat.
I mean, he's not
Which,
entirely wrong.
yeah, I mean,
Good.
I was like, that's a little bit of a stretch, but it was enough to make me rethink the name, which thank God, because 18 miles is way better. Because it also leaves for people who get it right away, they think, oh, that's awesome. And then for people and then it leaves a name where it's like, you question it a little while. It's like, why is it called 18 miles? And it sticks in your head a little bit. So I think it's a great name that locks me into like the hometown tribute, like where I came from, because now I live in New York and I do a lot of my business in New York. And the way this business is structured now, 4 years later, is more like a 60-40, 60% doing commercial work and corporate content, and then 40% doing the weddings. And I love the weddings. The money is fantastic. I do like telling the stories a lot. It's just the longevity of the business and what I want to do with my life is working with clients and working with larger projects. And that's where we start doing the commercial stuff. But, and even so, which is the 18 miles still same way, leaves it in their ears, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I always joke that we need some vintage 18 miles hats and stuff. And then like when they see the alternate logos, it's like, oh, they got more than one logo. They got two aesthetics. Like that's
That's what
professional.
I know. And there's always a constant battle of what logo I want to use, and I'm always going back and forth because I can't make up my mind. But that's part of
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think one of my favorite parts about like the 18 mile story is like the exponential growth it went through, where you filmed 2 weddings in 2016. And then it's like each year after that, the number just kept shooting up. So I know you at least have a ballpark. Like tell us the numbers like year by
Yeah.
year.
Well, I'll finish the story real quick. So we did those 2 weddings in 2016, and then in 2017, that was like the first year that I like kind of like saw it as it could possibly being a business, and then growing it from there. So in 2017, I one of my teachers, Mr. Dreyer, was getting married. And I like joked with him a little bit because I wasn't confident at all in the work. I mean, I remember editing both weddings and being like, this is amazing. And I can't even watch them now. But I showed them to Miss Lucas and our other TV production teacher, and she was all about it. She was like, people pay a lot of money for videos like this, Connor. You should be charging more. Because I did the first one for 500, and then the second video I did for 100. And then so then my third wedding was I hadn't booked Mr. Dreyer's wedding yet. Tony Kuhn, who's a phenomenal videographer on Long Beach Island. He works with Ann Cohen.
Another great Manahawkin guy.
A great guy. He's awesome. But he unfortunately got in a really bad motorcycle accident in March, I think. It was either March or April of 2017, and lost his eye. And that's where his new logo comes from. He's awesome. You should definitely check him out, Tony Kuhn. But he got in this bad motorcycle accident the morning of a wedding. And he was only supposed to film the ceremony. There was no like full package or anything like that. So on like a 1-day notice, the photographer posted on Facebook if anybody knew any videographers. I, again, only had 2 weddings under my belt, but I sent them in my name because, I mean, I was available on the day of. Bride liked it enough and hired me for the day. And I wound up giving them more than just the ceremony, because I was there and I was still just trying to get started. And I did that one for $750. And then the next week I booked Mr. Dreyer's wedding, which was later in June. And again, like it was just this battle of what to charge, because I wasn't like a real business. I didn't like, checks were made out to me. Like there was no like name or anything yet. So after that though, that was when I started to get serious about it. And I had Anthony Sal's Arula, who is a phenomenal graphic designer, works for the Overwatch League now.
Another former guest on this podcast.
Yeah, his episode was awesome. And he designed my logo, my first logo with the ring, the bride and the groom. It's awesome. Thanks, Anthony. And then that's when we kind of got it taking it serious and doing it for real. So then I put up a website and had and designed it all, and I always remember laying on my mom's bed, like talking to her and like looking down at my phone, and I got my first wedding inquiry from that. And it wasn't something that I like reached out to somebody for, or somebody sent them my way. It's like they found my website, they liked the prices because the prices were on the website. They watched the films and they wanted to book me. And I just remember freaking out over it. And that was really that was what I consider to be like the start of it. So in 2017, I filmed an additional 8 weddings. So it went 2 in 2016, 8 in 2017. 2018 was a mind-boggling 32 weddings. And then that was the biggest year. And then in 2019, I dialed it back a little bit because I really burned myself out in 2018, and we'll talk about it. And then in 2019, we dialed it back a little bit and did 15 weddings. But that was the year that last year I started second shooting a lot and working with other companies to disperse my workload, but still make the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think looking back on it now, it's like, I always knew you were going to do something crazy because it's Connor. It's like every time you run into him, something crazy happens, whether it's buying a vending or a claw machine. That was actually for lollipops. He thought it was a full size one, or buying a dummy and dressing it up and naming it Felix and carrying it everywhere with him.
There was just, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of random things happening, but then deep down there was this happening where like you were figuring out how to make money, more money than any of our friends, because we have this very large, lovely group of friends of like 20 plus people. And it's always just like, of course, Connor's the one that figured out how to own his own business and make bank off of it.
No, I mean, that's what our friend Zach always says it. He say it's always so funny, but also like feels good to hear. It's like of everyone he knows, everyone in our friend group, the last person you would have expected was me, because I'm like a glorified man child. Like I just like to have fun.
But when it comes down to business, you know what you're doing. I mean, it's not like you lucked in. Like the first couple we lucked into and it kind of snowballed. But after that year where you had 8 weddings, you don't just get 32 weddings based off of luck. You know?
No, I mean, it was a lot, but it was a huge, like, I learned so much and I grew so much from that. And that's the thing, is I think that a lot of it came down to being very real and being very transparent and just wanting to have fun. Like, I started filming all these weddings with the intent of wanting to retell the day, and I really loved telling the stories of the day. It was a lot of fun filming it and putting it together. But that was also when I was doing 8 a year and I could really put the time into it. And the thing about weddings is a lot of people in this industry get into it by having another job and realizing that they want to work for themselves, and then to have a similar story to me where they film a friend's wedding because they have a camera, and it grows from there. I think a lot of people start by filming a friend's wedding, but it's very rare for somebody to do it so young and then to grow it to proportionally, which was a lot of fun to be going through and learning at the same time, because I was able to watch and learn and be able to take a lot of risks because I didn't have too much to lose. Like, I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a car payment. Like, I was being supported by my parents still. So all the money I made went directly back into the business. Like, I bought my equipment so sparingly. Like, to begin with, like, my first drone was the Phantom 4, and I got known for like my drone stuff because I was doing a lot of it, and I thought it was super fun and super cool. And it was right when drones started to get really big, and my dad bought me my first drone. My mom and dad, they both did. And it was like their initial investment in the company. So I bought that. Oh, well, they bought that. And then with all the money that we were making from the weddings, like, I kept borrowing the one camera from school. I kept trying to keep those costs low and buying the stuff that the school didn't have that I couldn't borrow, like microphones that would really enhance the audio quality, stabilizers, things like that. And then the cameras, I didn't upgrade from my Canon T6S. I can't believe I filmed weddings on that. Like, I didn't upgrade from that to the Sonys until midway through 2018, when the weddings really started taking off. And that's when I switched my camera system and started taking it a lot more seriously, because then I was starting to make money a lot more a lot quickly. Oh, wait, what? Can I speak?
You're doing
a lot
great.
faster. Thank you. So I started making money a lot faster, and that's when I was really able to scale the business up. And yeah.
So I think like 18 miles, it was more than just weddings though, because for you, it kind of gave you this portfolio where like you could show people like this is the work you do. And it led to something with Pace too, where like, cause you go to Pace now, which I don't know what your major is because you've changed it like 17 times. And like you were an art major at one point, which everybody who knows Connor, the man is not artistic unless he's holding a camera. Like
No, and that's really funny that you say that, because I took a photography class this semester at the ICP, the International Center of Photography in New York City, which is a world-renowned studio. So many famous photographers have trained there, have taught classes there. It was a great class. It got cut short because of the virus, obviously. But the one major thing that we learned, and that sticks with me, is that the Professor Neil Slavin, a great photographer, his lesson to us on the first day was that, yes, the class is called portrait photography, but photography in itself is art. And in order to learn that, we were going to explore all facets of art. So even though we were taking a portrait photography class, we were drawing. He wanted us to paint. He wanted us to sculpt. And like the plan through the semester was to do all of these mediums. And I remember sitting there, and on the portfolio day, when everyone shared the portfolio, everyone shared like these really like thought-provoking images, and it was like really staged and like beautiful lighting, highly edited, photoshopped, like beautiful images, but they were very posed, and they told their own story, but they were in itself art. And then I went closer to the end, and mine were totally different from everyone else's. Mine was a collection of images that I've done for paid work. So mine was some graduation images of people. Some were when I photographed Hillary Clinton with Pace. There was a lot of work that I'd done for people, and it was totally different from everyone else's, because and right away I was like, I'm not an artist. Like, I don't consider myself an artist at all. And even though photography is art, video is art, all of these things that people say that is your version of art, I don't consider it to be art at all. I think that that what we do is special, and it's a testament to yourself and what you put into it. And no two photographers' pictures are going to look the same, but I wouldn't consider it to be art.
That was deep.
Yeah, but I forget what was the original question. Like, why'd I go off on that?
Well, no, this is a podcast. Going off is perfect. You entered the zone, bro. When you're on a podcast, you just start talking and it just feels right. And I loved every second of that, because I didn't know you took that class. But my question was, because it's like a little segue into how 18 miles took its next step into like clients, like what you said you're more geared towards now. So Connor goes to Pace, and he's had a bunch of different majors. I don't know which one you are currently. I think it's
communications, right where I started. I just went through a big circle for no reason.
Shout out communications. But yeah, so you ended up doing videos for Pace, right? Like, how did that start?
Right. All right. That's right. So I went to Pace before I committed to Pace, and went to school in 2017. And I shot 2 more weddings in 2017. I went home to do it. But I kept booking them. And that was when my first semester of college was really when it started taking off. And there was all of these questions like, well, I have suddenly all of these weddings and I'm making a lot of really great money. what am I doing paying all this money for a degree? And a lot of people from home were like, drop out. And a lot of people at Pace were like, drop out. But then there were a lot of people, like my parents were huge advocates of stay in school, get a degree. And a lot of the people, and some people at Pace were also like, you shouldn't drop out. Like, what if you don't want to do this forever? And I was like, I want to do it forever. I love. And so, but I wound up staying, and then going through the rest of my freshman year into the summer when I was an orientation leader, which was a lot of fun. But for orientation, they wanted us to film a video welcoming the freshmen into the university. So I shot the video because I had a little bit of experience, but again, not a ton. But so the video by no means was incredible, but we worked on it a lot, and I made it. And the university reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to make another video welcoming the president into the school. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was their kind of trial for me to see if they want me doing more projects with them. But they had me doing that first video, and it was a lot of fun. And then after I filmed it, they took me on for these larger projects with them of really marketing for the school. And looking back on these first two videos, though, like they also were not fantastic. Like I've grown so much with every project I've done. Like every wedding gets better than the last wedding because we learn and we do things differently. And the same thing works with the commercial stuff. And I used to, with my first Pace video, like I was just filming what they wanted me to film. And then a few videos later, now I'm like directing them, and I know exactly what we need to do in order to get the shot. And it's
I think a lot of people are afraid to take that first leap into something where they think they already need to be an expert on it, where it's like the opposite, where you can't film weddings unless you start filming weddings. You can't film videos for people unless you start filming videos for people. You're not going to be great at it right away. But if you work hard and you prove yourself to people, it's like an investment, and like Pace invested in you, and I think it's worked out quite well for them.
Yeah, I mean, but thank you. But I mean, it's like the same. It's exactly what you said, though. Like I also get scared to start new things. Like I wanted to be on a podcast, your podcast, since you started it. But like I know I'm not very good at talking and myself being on camera. I'm good at being behind the camera, but I wasn't good at being behind the camera until I continued and kept on growing and trying to get better at it. But in 2018, so I started with those two videos for Pace. And then after that, really went crazy because I booked so many weddings without knowing what I was able to take on myself, because I've never done it before. And not only had I not filmed that many weddings before, obviously, but I also have never had a job. Like it was my first job was my own company. So I never experienced hard work. So 2018, when we shot like 25 or 20 between 25 and 32 weddings in 3 months between September and November, and I went home every single weekend, and it was like this just emotionally draining. Like I've never been so drained anytime in my life besides that point, because I was in a semester at school. I was during the week going to school, trying to have a social life and editing weddings while shooting every weekend. So I would take the bus home, shoot Saturday, sometimes shoot Saturday and Sunday. There was one weekend in September where we shot Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And all three, like Friday was like Friday was actually at home at Cedar Bond Island. And Saturday was like out west in Philly. And then Sunday was all the way up in North Jersey and Orange. And it was 3 really big weddings back to back. And that middle wedding, we were double booked. And Neil Marzana, who also films a ton of weddings with me, he took a team and I took a team. And when we double booked, we split all the gear and we filmed 2 weddings on the same day. It's a lot of fun. But I remember when we did that first wedding, I was so nervous because we had never done it before. and it was the first wedding under my name that I wasn't filming. It was like a scary thought because I went through the entire process. Like, I booked the couple, I talked with them, I got the timeline, I worked with them the entire way through, and then Neil shot the wedding. So the entire day, even while I was at my own wedding, I was texting, making sure everything was okay, seeing what was going on. And I remember when it was finally all said and done, and I got the wedding back from Neil, and I watched it. I cried because I was so happy, and I was like, I can't believe that, like, this is something, like, this is real. Like, that was like the first time that I was like, oh, maybe this is working. Like, this company is real. I made money, and all I did was book it. Like, I didn't film it, I didn't edit it. I sent a team, I managed it, and I made money. Like, that is, by all definitions, a company. And it was awesome. But continuing through those 3 months, I just got really tired and filming all these weddings. And it wasn't just the filming, because it's emotional. It's exhausting physically to be filming on your feet for 12 hours a day for every weekend, and then going through and like going to school and all of that. But what I failed to consider when I was booking everything was my expectations. And this was a huge lesson that I learned, was how to manage expectations correctly. And I failed to do that when I was booking all these weddings, because I had in my contract a guaranteed 1 month turnaround for all of these weddings. And a wedding usually takes me over 100 hours to edit. So now you have this 3 month period where I'm filming all of these weddings, and take a weekend where I'm filming 3 weddings. That's 100 hours per wedding, 300 hours of editing. There's just not enough. And then now I'm doing this every weekend. So I'm now this point where I'm trying to do schoolwork, but I also have to edit. And there comes a point where there's so much work ahead of you, and you know how much is happening, and you have so much work to do that you just don't want to do any of it. And that was what I started feeling come October. And then in October, I went through a breakup, and I went through all of this just hard times. And with school was getting hard, and all of this at the same time just led me to stop wanting to do any of this work. But I still have to honor these commitments. I still have to film the weddings. And then there came a point where I was working on the wedding slowly, and I got an email from a couple that I filmed their wedding in September. And I got an email from them asking when their video, when they could expect their video. It wasn't malicious at all. They weren't like, where's our video? They were just, hey, Connor, do you have any idea, any update? Hope you're doing well. Hope the semester is doing well. And I just, in that moment, realized that I had 5 weddings in the queue before I could get to their wedding. And their wedding, and they were emailing me to see where it was at. And I haven't even looked at everything because it's 5 weddings backed up. And then there's another 5 behind that. And I still have 16 left for the year. And it's like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? And I mean, we eventually made it out of it. And then I had to do a little backtracking and remanage some expectations, be like, hey, I was just totally honest. And I compensated everyone with some free raw footage for every wedding, which was a $500 add-on, but I gave it away for free to everyone that year. So, because I just couldn't do the 1 month thing. And it was more turning out more like 3 months. And I looked into the outsourcing of edits for some of the harder weddings. Like we did a huge Jewish wedding in September, which was a lot of fun. And I kept trying to work on it, but I couldn't do it justice because they were an awesome couple. And the bride had tried to do everything to make it as easy as possible for me, because it was like as Jewish as you could possibly get with the ceremony. There was no standard American aspect to it, and she was very knew that was going to be tough, and it was mainly just for her family that she was even having a wedding. So she tried to make it as easy as possible for me, and I still just couldn't do it justice. So I outsourced it to somebody who did know how to do it. And it came back phenomenal, and I'm really happy I did it. And then that ability to outsource weddings, when I got really backed up, was a weird idea, because I wanted to do all of the weddings that I filmed so I could do it justice, but at the same time, there's only so much that I can do as one person. And that's this really strange dynamic, because 18 Miles is its own company, but at the end of the day, like I'm the person behind it. Like there's only one owner. Like I have a team that we pull in when we need people. Like I bring you in when I need an additional shooter. I bring Neil in when I need an additional shooter. But at the end of the day, if somebody emails 18 Miles, the only person that's going to see it before it gets sent to somebody else, the only person that's going to see it is me. So it becomes a barrier in front of me, as like a security almost. Like if something were to happen, like everything falls under 18 Miles, but it's just me. And it's a big thing of biting off more than you can chew, and learning your limits. And because you always want to take as many projects as you can, because the thing with video and photo, like they're all really high price tags. So to say no to one thing, even though it's, oh, well, you get so many gigs, why are you going to say no to, like, you can say no to a few. Like, what can you just say no to this one? But by turning down one gig, you're turning down $4,000. Like that's a lot of money.
And you don't want to turn it down either. Like it's
Yeah.
genuinely just fun to do. But I think that stretch was kind of what forced, but also was needed. 18 Miles, like different path to kind of show itself to everybody, like because you figured it out where you were doing those videos for Pace. And I mean, since then, the random clients that you've gotten for 18 Mile Media as opposed to weddings, of just the different things you get to do. It's like, yeah, weddings are dope and weddings are fun, and it's like a super fun, crazy day, and it's like 12 hours you're filming. It's like intense. But then there's all other kinds of work out there where almost anybody that has a company or a brand needs a video for something at some point, whether it's like a campaign or just a trailer or for an event, like just something like that, because you got a lot of different clients like that now too, right?
Yeah, well, video is one of the most powerful marketing tools in the world, especially nowadays, and even more so during this pandemic has really bringing it to light. Like, but at the same time, reevaluating a lot of people's priorities, and it's interesting, and I'm glad that I started making the decision a few years ago to start going more corporate and commercial, because it is a lot of fun. So, in addition to weddings, I've given drone footage to CBS for CBS 48 Hours. That was really cool, because at the start of the program, it's my drone shot that opens the whole show, which was awesome, crazy. And so I've worked with them, and then through Pace, I've gotten a lot of gigs. So Hillary Clinton in December had her final stop on the book tour, on her Gutsy Women book tour at Pace. And so Pace got me the gig to photograph for her. So I was the only photographer there for the event, as well as a photo line before the event. And then I got my own picture with her, which is hanging on my wall because she's amazing. So I got to work with her. I've taken pictures for Jonathan Van Ness from Netflix's Queer Eye, also through Pace. And I went to the Super Bowl 54. That wasn't through 18 Miles. That was just pure freelance network.
Yeah, baby.
Working on the audio team with our friend Taylor and Bree and Jump on lots of Manahawkin people. We all flew down there together. That was so much fun. And then I started working with a YouTuber. His YouTube channel is called Teaching Men's Fashion. And I got that gig through somebody that I knew at Pace. They reached out to him and asked if they knew any New York videographers, and then they gave my name. So it was kind of just the people that I met in New York that led to this gig, and I filmed 2 videos with them, both in New York, which was a lot of fun. We filmed at the most expensive gym in New York City, which was $1,000 a month to be a part of. It was an insane gym. and then just kind of a vlog in New York City. And that was when he brought up the idea that he might be moving to New York, and there was the potential for like a New York studio, and that would be awesome to help out with that. And then later that year, well, no, sorry, next year, in 2020, in January, they reached out to me to film 4 commercials for their upcoming facial cleansing brand, He Grooming, and they flew me down to Miami for the weekend to film these 4 commercials. They rented this really bougie hotel room, and we filmed 4 commercials in there, and they were that was some of the best work that I think I've ever done. Like, that was so much fun to make, and it was totally different than anything I've made. Like, up until that point, pretty much everything I've ever made has been like true or like a retelling. Like, it was very documentary. Like, a wedding is as documentary as you can get. It's just retelling the story of the day. Even commercial videos, like for Pace, it was telling like why Pace and tell people's stories for Pace, to advertise the school that way. And then this was a totally scripted, directed, all right, let's do that again. Okay, let's do that again. Let's set up lights. Let's do this. And we had a pure vision before going into it, which is something that I haven't done since high school, which was pre-production and planning the shoot before we went and before we went and did it, because that's just not something that I was really familiar with. And we did it, and it was a lot of fun. And it's continuing to lead to a lot of great work. Hopefully I'll get to work with them again in New York when this is over. But we'll see. And we've done, I've just done a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't learn my limits with 18 miles to begin with. And if I kept booking the way I was, because if you think about it, like, that's the thing with weddings is that it's great money, and it's fairly easy work, and it's really fun work. But the thing with it is that a lot of these couples book their vendors a year and a half in advance. And if something good comes up a month before the wedding, you've been locked into this commitment for a year and a half now. You can't bail out. So if I had a wedding booked over the Super Bowl, I wouldn't have been able to go to the Super Bowl, which in like, when you weigh it, it's a commitment that I have to honor. But going to the Super Bowl is, how do you say no to that? Luckily that didn't happen. But that and any other gig, if I had a wedding the weekend they wanted to film the commercials, they would have found somebody else to film the commercials, and then I never would have gotten the Miami gig. Or if I had a wedding on Hillary Clinton, like, it was all of these what ifs, and that's it's a constant fear of, because I have bad FOMO, fear of missing out, and that's the ultimate missing out, is if I had to miss something really great because I made a commitment for a wedding a year and a half in advance. And again, that's kind of like with the shield of 18 miles in front of me. And what I want to eventually grow the business to is this. It's a business, which is something that I never wanted to do, because I've always like, oh, I'm not in it for the business. I'm in it for the filming and the art. And that's absolutely true. I am in it for the art and I just said I'm not an artist, but here I'm calling it art again. But I love using the camera and I want to do that. But I also need to recognize that I need to make money, and the money right now comes from the weddings. And in order to keep this lifestyle and can keep growing, and especially graduating next year and having to go into the real world. And I've been in this kind of limbo for 4 years now of half school, half my company and growing the company. But if I wanted to go full time and not have to get a job besides working for myself after graduation, I really need to scale up the weddings to be able to make this life until I can have enough commercial work to support myself that way. So eventually I want to grow the company to being a larger house where you book the company and I send other people to film the weddings.
I think it's a common misconception where you have to pick, I'm in it for the money or I'm in it for the thing like that I'm doing, where I know you've learned and I've learned, you can quite literally be in it for both, and that is perfectly okay. Where like we make good money doing what we do, and you can't just hand somebody a camera and they do what we do. That's why we make good money. But also you can still love it. I mean, like I am not a wedding videographer, but if Connor asks me to do a wedding, I get stoked because I don't do weddings a lot. It's a very different style of filming and I get to make money doing it. I'm like, that's a win-win-win right there, you know? I think that your story is like one of my favorites out of all of my friends that I've met because when you were 17 years old, I knew you were very talented and I knew you would go somewhere, but like to think you were going to own a business and then now you're 20 years old and to see what it is just amazing that like you went from filming a wedding on a favor to making your livelihood off weddings and then turning that into new clients pretty much wherever you go because literally your school is one of your biggest clients. Like if you've seen a video for Pace recently, Connor probably had his hands on it somehow.
Yeah,
Like
and I mean, right now I'm working on the virtual graduations for Pace, which is probably the biggest project I've ever taken on because it's such a, I mean, what's happening right now in the world is so unprecedented, but to have, because for Pace, like we're supposed to graduate by walking across Radio City. And like that's an experience that a lot of people come to Pace specifically for. Like they want to have the experience of walking across Radio City and getting their diploma, and to be filming and piecing together the virtual graduations is like a big undertaking because I'm already preparing myself for the backlash really, because I already know that there's going to be a lot that comes from um, uh, this is that we're supposed to walk across Radio City and this is the most they could do, unknowing that I made it. Just not, and it's nothing bad about the video, but it's against the university, and for me, like it's just a huge project to be working on in general, and to like they're an hour long. They're they want 5 videos, one for each school, and it's just a large undertaking. And I mean, this is really cementing like the future, though. Like I think that I can't say for certain, but I think that when I'm done at Pace and I have my degree, I don't think that my work with them will be done. Like I think they'll continue using me. Because I mean, even when I first started with them when I was a sophomore and working and filming videos with them, it was very much like we like you and you're a student and we understand that, but like we do use your company. Like when I get paid through Pace, it doesn't come through like the same way that I get paid for like my student employee jobs. Like I get paid for Pace through my business, and my business is a vendor there, and I get checks mailed to the business to my house. It's not like a direct deposit situation. It's totally different, and it keeps the work and the school kind of separate, which is difficult because like right now, like I'm getting emails to all 3 accounts. Like my 18 miles email gets graduation emails, but so does my student, and so does my student staff emails. So like I'm getting emails and trying to coordinate it on all 3 because everyone has a different email of mine. But it's yeah, it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun.
yeah, and I mean 18 miles, like you were chanting this and texting me about it all the time. You went through the rebrand with the new logos, new website and everything. So in the link of the description on YouTube will be the link to the website, and I'll get some links from Connor for different stuff. But right now, why don't you take the time to kind of shout out where they can find you, like as Connor, and then 18 miles too.
Well, my Instagram is at It's Connor Morgan, and then my Instagram, and then my business Instagram is at 18 Mile Media. But I went through this whole rebrand for exactly like what I was saying before about not just wanting to do video, not just wanting to do weddings, because my old logo was very clearly for weddings. Like the 8, it was very clever. You can see it, but it was like a wedding ring was the 8, and then a bride and groom were the M and I. And then so I did this whole rebrand for a few reasons, but number one is like I didn't want to just be doing weddings. I wanted to be doing a lot of work under the same thing. So I one of the gigs I did, I got flown to LA to film a movie premiere. So the movie was premiering and got bought by Oprah Winfrey's network OWN. But I was filming a hype video for the movie premiere tour because they went to 8 cities across the United States. So I went to the very first one, LA, and then they used my video to promote the other 7 cities. And while I was there, I had to put my logo at the end of the video, obviously, so I could get my credit. But here I was thinking, like, I'm putting this wedding logo at the end of it. It was so confusing to me. And so while I was there is when I kind of had the idea of like going through like a full rebrand with it. So that's when I dropped. So it was 18 Mile Productions. And then Productions was very just video oriented. So I dropped the Productions and then changed the logo to just be a badge. And I named it 18 Mile Media, because media can be anything. Media can be a short film. Media can be a photograph. Media could be a podcast. Media can be anything that you interact with. So media just opened it up to so many more horizons, and being able to do all of this different work across the board, not just weddings.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a smart move, just the way things are going right now too, where media is a more marketable word and marketing is huge, where like, I mean, the last 4 years of college, marketing has been drilled into my brain, where they're like, listen, you want to make movies, you need to know how to market movies, because like you need to be able to sell this stuff. And it's true, where media encapsulates a ton of different things, where like your business, even though you would have done it before anyways, now it just looks and sounds like it will do that kind of stuff, which I think is a very underrated thing, where like a lot of people don't think about the name or the logo or the website until it's time to make them. Whereas you've already gone through multiple website changes, layouts, you're always tweaking it, which is very smart, just figuring out like what works best and stuff. But yeah, I mean, and then also, like, I know 18 miles is like where you're at now, but where do you see yourself in the future? Like continuing the company or like something completely different? Like where's Connor Morgan at right now?
That's a great question, and I don't know, and I never know. I mean, if you asked me
Hell
a
yeah,
month
brother.
if you asked me a month before I rebranded, I wouldn't have told you I was going to go through a rebrand in a month. And if you would have asked me when I was photographing Hillary Clinton, like, do you think you'll be doing anything better than this in a month? I'd say absolutely not. This is the peak of my career. And then a month later, I was at the Super Bowl. So there's always something new that comes up, and for me, like, I'm not locked into anything in particular. If I were to take on a job working with somebody else, I think that the 18 miles entity in front of me is something that will stay for a long time. I think that if I were to take on working with a bigger company, I think that it would be 18 miles is the production house that works with them. Even if it's just me working with them, I think I'm always going to use 18 miles as a little, like, at the end of the day, it's my production company.
Your brand.
Yeah. So I think I'm always going to want that to represent me. And I don't think weddings will be forever. I think it's going to be something that fades away eventually, because it's just not where, like, I want to be doing something where my heart is at, and I'm just not that business oriented. So I don't want to put, I hate sales. I don't want to make sales. It sucks. Like, when I have to go through when I send the pricing sheet, like, to talk numbers with a couple or with a company is just so difficult, because like it's everyone's always going to have this battle of, am I charging enough? Am I charging too little? You obviously want to make the most amount of money you can, but at the same time, you don't want to overcharge and make people think that you will are worth more than you actually are, and then you tarnish a relationship by charging too much. So it's always this fine line of working with that. But I don't know. It's whatever the future holds is what it holds. I'm not against anything. I'm not for anything. I'm just kind of rolling with the punches. All I know is that I need to be making more money than I am now in order to continue living in the city after graduation.
That is
so
facts.
We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd said this to you before, but it's like whenever I get a text from Connor, it's either he needs an opinion about something on a website, a video, or he's telling me that he's photographing Hillary Clinton or going to the Super Bowl. And I'm just like, I quite literally never know what to expect from you. But
yeah, or it's something dumb.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Memes. We can love memes. John Cena. Connor's part of the reason why I own this. Yeah. But yeah, no. So Connor, I want to thank you for being on. This will not be the last time you're on because we love bringing people back just to talk about other things within creating, and you got a lot to offer in lots of different ways. But I just want to thank you.
Yeah.
And you better follow this guy, 18 Miles Media on Instagram, right?
18 Mile Media on Instagram.
18 Mile Media, and then it's Connor Morgan, baby. You got to follow him.
Yeah. Thanks, Luke.
Yep. And hey, shout out to that damn group message because I feel like most of them will be listening to this episode.
What's up, that damn group message?
Yeah. And hey, that's a pod. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you later.
My main thing left and my side thing switched up. It's better that way. I was getting them mixed up. Main thing left, side thing switched up. It's better that way. I was getting them mixed up. Solo at the party, so I left with myself. If I needed what she